We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. Jake, we have a special day today because one of us, I guess not one of us on this stream, but one of us, I guess, in the Line Movement YouTube channel, won $50,000 in the Thunderdome last week. Also, one of us in this chat would have had a lineup that would have beat that team. So Jake Seeley from The Athletic, I would ask you, like I normally do, how your week 8 was. God, week 9 already. How was your week 8, my friend, outside of probably winning the Thunderdome if you would have been in it?
Yeah, that's why I got to play some more of that stuff. It was actually really good. I tripled up on DraftKings and doubled up on FanDuel. So another good week where made a profit on both sites. Really came down to the biggest reason I had, I'm not kidding, I had 100% ownership of Dalvin Cook. And then most of the teams where I had Dalvin Cook, I found a way to get Derrick Henry in there as well. So I went heavy running back, because this is your favorite thing to do.
Talk to me about the Dalvin Cook play, because that's one that I didn't end up there at the very end, but like that's the type of GPP play I think makes the most sense at running back, because we're not getting super thin with these guys that are going to touch the ball 12 times. Dalvin Cook, you know the volume's going to be there. If you believed in the health, if you believed that there was going to be win concerns in this game, it would make sense that they were just going to try and attack that inefficiency on the Green Bay side, and their defense has really struggled in defending the run. The one thing that I guess everyone wants to talk about, the wide receivers in the draft that they didn't address. They also didn't address their deficiencies at defending the run. So how else did you get on Dalvin? I mean, he was like sub 10% most of the stuff I was in.
Yeah, that's actually exactly, you gave all the reasons. So first you start with the matchup, and the Packers, like the Panthers, continue to be one of the biggest problems. 2, you have Dalvin Cook, who's one of the 3 remaining elite running backs, because now Zeke's not even in the equation with how that offense is. So you have somebody that can do, the big thing about Cook is it's not just what he can do. He can do it in the passing game too. We saw Madison try to take over and just realized, there's a big difference in talent between Madison and Cook. So you have that. You talked about the weather. I talked about this on the Sunday morning show. We didn't really touch too much on it last week, but it's something I write up in a column. Anytime you get 25-mile-an-hour winds, and then you couple that with potential precipitation or temperatures under freezing, you have a severe decrease to the long passing game. You see the opportunities with Devontae Adams in that game. Stephon Diggs did very well with Josh Allen. So you can use the lower air yards per target, ADOT guys. Those guys still work out fine. It's the deeper guys, the deeper plays, but the passing game as a whole takes a hit. You saw what happened in the Las Vegas-Cleveland game. I was on Kareem Hunt a little bit for the same exact reason. That one didn't work out. This one did. And so Dalvin Cook was a big smash spot for me. It was that week where if you didn't have Derrick Henry, you didn't do well. If you didn't have Dalvin Cook, you didn't do well this week.
I built a team for the Mega Million, so it was like a 33,000 person tournament. So I got a little bit more contrarian than I normally do, but it didn't even matter, because there was like the only ones even within striking distance, not only had Dalvin Cook, not only had Metcalf, they also had the Dolphins defense. Like, you needed that trio to even sniff anything on DraftKings this week. So the person that won the Patreon contest actually had Jimmy G at quarterback, didn't have a whole lot else, but he had that 3, and then he won this contest that was like 100 people or so. So that, like, the field size is what matters, of course, but crazy. If you didn't have that trio, it was a rough spot overall. So Jake, I guess this would be a good time to talk about, so you would have won the Thunderdome. I guess Leone isn't as cool as I thought. That's, I guess, another example, man, of just like the field size what matters. It's 30 people by that much.
What was Leone's final score? It was 163, I think,
something like that, because everyone was trolling us in the chat because they're like, "Oh, that crappy score, just 150K." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's available to you as well if you want to play a $5,000 entry. It's not against the rules. You can also do that if you want to risk that much." But
it's I hit with like the 175, so I would have squeaked it out or eked it out. I actually had the Colts defense, which worked out really well. They're really good for the price. Not quite, obviously, the Dolphins. I mean, I didn't see that coming. But Ayuk was the easy one. That was the free space of the week. We talked about that on last Monday's show, and they don't always work out. But Jamal Williamson, go down the list. I had Boyd and Burrow, which weren't even that great. But when you have it across the board, and then the one thing that I thought was interesting is the free space I didn't go after was actually Denzel Mims. It was so cheap that it almost seems stupid not to, but I took a shot and said, you know what? I feel like his ownership, like legitimately everybody's going to own him. I was actually expecting more than 25% own. I was expecting, it was surprisingly, Mims was at 3,200, it was only 25%, and Ayuk was 46% at 5,800. I actually thought the percentages would be closer.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about wide receiver last week is there ended up being so many value plays of like literally close to the stone min that were like in play, like Barrios, so like obviously a lower ceiling than someone like Mims, but someone like that was in play. A lot of people went that direction. So kind of an interesting week overall. Not a great week for me personally, but I took some shots. I actually ended up with so almost every player in my lineup was 1% owned in the Mega Milli. So
nice.
Week 9 lineup review. We're going to walk through my lineup in the Mega Millionaire. That was a $1,000 entry on DraftKings. I had it in everything below, and I also had it, of course, in the Patreon contest. So if you're here wondering what the Patreon is, let's touch on that quickly for the people. The Patreon is a weekly DraftKings contest, but also it's just a fantasy football DFS betting community. So if anyone has jumped in the Discord over the last couple weeks, hopefully you're making friends in there. Hopefully you're learning a lot. There's a lot of conversation in there. I've been really pleased with it overall so far. It is $1 per month, but 25 cents per week. I don't think it's too much to ask. We're putting all the profit right back into this. It's been basically a situation where I've just been upping the prize every week. The first week we did a $20 Amazon gift card for the prize of the DraftKings tournament. I'm going to make it a $31. I made it a $30 last week. This coming week, you guys are going to have to come back on the Wednesday show, 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's when I'm going to kind of cut off wherever we get to. Right now we're at 168 Patreons. So I would imagine we're going to have to bump the prize up a little bit. But come back on Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, the Joe Holka Show. We'll go through what the prize is going to be for this weekly DraftKings tournament. Obviously, we have the Red Zone channel going on Sundays, an exclusive 15 to 30-minute live stream directly before kickoff. So hopefully I didn't get you guys off of all the good plays last week, but it is nice to kind of get my final thoughts. That's not on YouTube. It's not anywhere else. It's only for the Patreons in Discord. So guys, 168 Patreons, that's a great start. That's a great start. And like I think the most fun about all of this, guys, is that now we get to go through and do a victory lap on stream, right? We're going to go through my lineup, of course, which will not be much of a victory lap. And then we're going to go through the Patreon winner right here, as promised. So let's do it. Let's go over to DraftKings. We only got about 15 minutes before we do our DFS first look for week 9. So we got to wrap up week 8 here. I think we have to do it. Let's start with my team in the Mega Milli. So like I said, $1,000 entry. How often do you have the chance at $1 million for just a $1,000 entry? I'll say this though. Normally, if you've been watching any of my content for a long time, you know that I stick to the smaller field sizes overall. There's about 3,000 people in this, so significantly larger than I normally play. Normally I'm anywhere from like that 350 people or down, because then you don't need the nut lineup to fully win, to fully get to the top of these prize pools that are so like top heavy these days. This was a unique situation. I was trying to win. But let's go through my roster quickly. So again, if you've been watching my content for a long time, you know that I typically do spend a lot of salary at running back. It's one of those positions that's very easy to project. If you are going to pivot away, it's probably with someone that's getting a lot of volume at lower ownership. Anyone in the chat have Dalvin Cook this week? That's the kind of tournament play that does make a lot of sense. But this past week, Kareem Hunt, 50% owned. He was 6,900. Really just underperformed, which is really unfortunate because he had such a large opportunity with Chubb out over the last few weeks. Hunt has kind of been battling through a few injuries of his own, but I didn't see this coming. I guess the mediocre type of performance that we've seen from Hunt in the box score over the last few weeks was pretty disappointing. So Hunt will be back after the bye, Chubb will be back after the bye. So maybe we won't have to go through this headache anymore. But anyways, 50% owned in the Mega Milli. Justin Williams, again, just massively underpriced for this role for Minnesota in Green Bay. There was some win concerns in both of these games. Expected them to kind of lean on the run a little bit more. Interesting about the Justin Williams play, or Jamal Williams. Where did I get Justin Williams from? Any Carolina Hurricane fans out there? Jamal Williams. Interesting thing about this, guys, he kind of got there late. 6 catches. He racked up a bunch of catches late, 18 points, didn't get in the box. But that's pretty solid for a guy that I thought was going to be around 12 for most of the day. So you'll take that at 6,100, even at that ownership. Did have Kamara, only 23%. I considered a more aggressive late swap here, but I thought that he would be closer to 18 in this specific contest. I was a little bit wrong about his projected ownership. Does miss the receiving bonus by 4 yards, which is crazy. But over 150 total yards from Kamara, 9 receptions, doesn't get in the box, still scores 25 fantasy points on DraftKings. Crazy. So a lot of chalk there. my running back. So I got weird. I told you guys about this. Cam Newton to Mayers. So Mayers kind of taking over that slot role that Julian Edelman left behind. That's right where you target Buffalo. So maybe not a huge ceiling here, but 6 catches for 58 yards, 13.8 points at just 3,500 at 1% ownership to pair with Cam Newton, a skinny stack here, obviously. Cam Newton at 1% with the rushing ability that he has, 54 rushing yards, guys. So yeah, he fumbles in this game, has a rushing touchdown, doesn't throw a touchdown in this game, has almost 20 points at 5,700 at super low ownership. So I'm able to get in the plays that I want by starting with a really cheap stack there. So obviously the running backs, I spent a ton of money there, but my main kind of mini stack that I was focused on, I love this Pittsburgh and Baltimore game for points in terms of just trying to get some ceiling at lower ownership. So Eric Ebron, Juju Smith-Schuster, bringing it back with Marquise Hollywood Brown. We just talked about it. He's upset on Twitter because of his usage. 3 receiving yards, gets bailed out with that touchdown. Almost had a touchdown right before that, actually. Had 1 foot out of bounds. But a tough scene overall from this core. But I think that overall, guys, this is how I like to construct rosters. I like to kind of go after some of the best plays, the quote-unquote best plays at running back, a position that we know we can project really well. And then for something as top-heavy as this mega millionaire contest, I want to try and get really different elsewhere. With ceiling, though, and to correlate. So Juju, Ebron, Marquise Brown, all of these guys super low owned, sub 10%, 1% for some of these guys, but still correlating in this game. I like that a lot. I considered, instead of Juju, this is actually something that I considered pretty close up until this game. I considered playing Claypool in this spot. I felt like Claypool take a little bit more from Ebron than Juju does, because obviously that role at the goal line, they kind of scheme him targets, or I guess touches around the goal line. So to me, Claypool and Ebron were a pretty significant negative correlation. So I went with Juju there. Wouldn't have mattered. Both guys ended up around the similar amount of points. Chargers defense. So paying up to be contrarian in the spot against Denver. 4K for the Chargers at 1%. Anytime you can get a defense like the Chargers that pressures a ton against a bad offensive line, a bad team, bad quarterback on the other side at 1%, I like it. I actually think this team was relatively sharp. Obviously, it didn't completely get up there. And kind of, it was pretty close to the cash line until that last game kind of went crazy. But I feel good about my process overall in this spot. Maybe I should have gotten a little bit more different at one of these running back slots, but I can't complain too much with this roster overall. Let me know in the chat. I guess if you're watching this after the live stream, let me know in the comments what you think about that lineup for something like the Millionaire Maker in particular. Obviously, Cam Newton, not an ideal play by any means, but I thought it was nice leverage off of someone like Jimmy G, so that part worked out quite a bit. Maybe I should have gotten a little more different at running back. Maybe I shouldn't have played Kamara, even though I was relatively dead at that point. You still need ceiling. We talked about this with late swap. You still need to switch to guys that have a decent ceiling. So in terms of ceiling, guys, it's time. Let's go to the Patreon contest here. We got to do it. Dougie Fresh 0597. Congrats, man. I know you were doing a few victory laps in Discord. I know that you also had a great showing in last week's contest. But let's talk about this team. Scores 180. We had 95 people in here. This is going to cap out at 200. I think that'll be very soon with the amount of Patreons we have now, about 168 at the time of this recording. He scores 180 points with Jimmy G. How does that happen, man? Are you kidding me? Jimmy G 16.8% in this contest goes with Jimmy G, Kendrick Bourne, brings it back with DK Metcalf. I like that stack. So this is a very similar, I don't know if this is where you had it in the beginning or if this was a late swap. I know there's some sharp people out there, some high stakes guys, Empire Maker in particular, made a swap. You stacked up a little mini correlation here with Darren Waller and Hunt. I like that. Waller, like, there's a lot of snowflakes in this lineup for how many points it scored, because you had all the nut plays outside of it. You had Dolphin. Literally, if you had Derrick Henry, if you had Dalvin Cook, Metcalf, and Dolphins D, you could do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup. Am I wrong? Like, put in reasonable plays around that, you probably had a really good day. That's how much different this Dolphins D was versus the field. Interesting. So 17.9% for Dolphins D in the Mega Million. 14%. So too sharp. The Holkamaniacs, too sharp. Kareem Hunt, 41% owned in this contest. Darren Waller, I think that was an interesting way to, I guess, take care of tight end by paying up. I did think it was a week where there were some nice options up there. A pivot off of Kelsey, a pivot off of Kittle. Obviously, this Jimmy G team without Kittle in it had to have been someone unique. Dalvin Cook at 9.5%, a sub 10% running back that we could probably project for, 22 touches? Something like that. It's sharp, man. That's what you do to get different at running back. You don't throw these flyers out there that are going to touch the ball 12 times. That's not how you win in DFS. It's really not. So I think that was sharp. I think that was sharp for sure. Derrick Henry at 32%, the big dog. This is not a burial game if you faded him. That's for sure. He was 8K. Has 0 receptions in this game. Wow. 112 rushing yards, does get the bonus. Obviously gets in the box. 20 points. You want a little bit more than that at 8K. But I did think that Henry was a sharp play. I thought he made a reasonable fade. No shocker there for anyone that's been watching. I always end up on the wrong side of Derrick Henry. This week in particular, it didn't quite kill me. Pretty crazy that this Jimmy G team scored so many points. Obviously, Mims in here at 3,200 made you obviously allowed the salary. Bourne and Mims, 2 cheap wide receivers, just to get up to a lot of volume at running back. I like the team, Dougie. I do. Dolphins D at 2,400 punting. Maybe not as strong of a play as like Washington a couple weeks ago, but definitely in play. Definitely in play. I like it quite a bit. Great job, man. I think overall, this is a contest that's going to be really fun to monitor in the community throughout this. So if you're watching this for the first time, definitely join us over on Patreon and in the Discord. It's something that I think I care more about building this up than a lot of things, right? Because it's where we actually get to interact as a group. People are going to get to know each other. This is something that I think the value for 25 cents a week, pretty much unmatched out there with the group of people and the smart people we have in there. So I appreciate everyone that's been involved so far. Again, let me know in the comments what you think of my lineup in the Millionaire Maker this past week. I'll try and do better next week, of course, but I think I took some shots. I didn't necessarily get a shot on goal, but I took some shots. I think that's a good way to think about it. Those tournaments is just a great example looking at these 2 tournaments. Obviously, our Patreon contest versus the Millie. The size is what matters, guys. So like what takes down our contest, 180 points, the Mega Millionaire, and that's only 3,000 people. You needed a 229 to win that. So I'd focus on that when you're trying to figure out what types of contests to play. That's what truly matters, guys. Anyways, man, anything else on last week? I think that pretty much covers it for me.
No, just one more reminder. I don't know how many times people have been watching the show, if they're new this week or new last week, but I just want to hammer home, if you have the opportunity to do late swaps, that's actually why I made some money on FanDuel yesterday, is when you look at the late swap, is to continue for everybody out there as a reminder, if you're behind, get off the chalk if you're on the chalk for the 4 o'clock games, and that's how you can make up. So I pivoted. Granted, it was a 1 catch for a touchdown, but I pivoted off the chalk tight end situation in the afternoon and switched and got up to Keenan Allen at wide receiver, which I didn't have Keenan Allen before, because I went with Big O at tight end and he got the touchdown. It wasn't huge, but being able to do that and get up to Keenan Allen before what I had pretty chalky, I was able to, I didn't make a ton of money on, like I said, FanDuel, I only doubled up, but it made me go from just out of the money to just inside the money in one of the lineups.
Yeah, you see some of the best players in the world doing it as well. So Empire Maker plays probably higher stakes than most people, but he also ended up doing a late swap that really worked out. So his original team, I believe, was Jimmy G, Ayuk, and Lockett. He late swapped that to Russell Wilson, Metcalf, and then I believe Kendrick Bourne, and just won everything for the most part. So that was pretty crazy, at least at the high stakes. One thing that was crazy about the Thunderdome, that 5K entry, 30 people, there was like 3 dupes in that team, in that tournament, which is just crazy to me. That's just like the most negative EV thing I've ever seen. 30-person tournament, right. You're gonna throw an optimal in there and match 3 people identically. That, I don't know. So I think that's an interesting tournament if you got the bankroll for it. Not that most people, I'd imagine, listening to this or even myself want to be firing at the Thunderdome every week.